Hey y'all, Seth Bradley here. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending your valuable time learning with us. Absolutely appreciate each and every one of you. I've got a small ask. If you'd please just take a few seconds and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening from, it goes a long way in landing the best new guests for our show. That's it. Thanks again. Let's go. What's going on, Law Nation? Welcome to the Passive Income Attorney Podcast, your favorite place for learning about the world of alternative passive investing so that you can have more freedom, flexibility, and fun. Today's episode, speaking of, is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to touch on a number of unique subjects, such as investing in self-storage, investing in industrial assets, as well as how to invest using your current retirement fund, possibly a 401k that you have or an IRA. We'll talk about how you can roll that over into a self-directed IRA. And then instead of relying on someone else to decide where your hard-earned dollars go, you can decide yourself. You can invest those dollars into a syndication, into real estate, into your own business. The possibilities are endless once you get it rolled over into the correct vehicle so that you can take more control over your financial future. Now, to take us on that journey, we have an old friend of mine, Dan Kryzanowski. He's an active real estate advisor, investor, and partner. He's raised millions of dollars across multiple channels, including accredited investors, family offices, and investment advisors, while empowering his partners to raise seven figures on multiple occasions. He's a smart dude. I've known him for a long time, a Wharton graduate. All right, without further ado, let's bring Dan on to the show.
This is the Passive Income Attorney Podcast, where you'll discover the secrets and strategies of the ultra wealthy on how they build streams of passive income to give them the freedom we all want. Attorney Seth Bradley will help you end the cycle of trading your time for money so you can make money while you sleep. Start living the good life on your own terms. Now, here's your host, Seth Bradley.
Dan, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the show.
Hey, big guy. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, man. We actually go back a good ways, especially for the real estate industry. A lot of people are new, so we go back a good ways.
I think I still have gray hair, but it's still hanging in there. So
yeah. Well, it's great to finally have you on the show, man. Let's dive right in. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and take it back as far as you want.
Sure. I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania, graduated in 2000. So, my claim to fame, showing my age here, is that we were one level of Kevin Bacon separation away from beating Kobe Bryant. We actually beat a gentleman, Donnie Carr, for the 8th grade state championship. So that was a whole 30 years ago. My fingers are hung up, but that will eternally be my claim to fame. Like a lot of us folks are Gen Xers, a little bit older out here. Everything was really standard. Top school, high-name companies, very, I'd say, status quo through 2008. And I preface all that, supposed sizzle, whether it's Wharton or GE or Wall Street, that my dad was a high school principal, my mom was a social worker. So the concept of pension and everything else was still very common, even though, one day I might be with all the high political flyers on Biden's Little League field in Scranton, PA, or rowing with Trump Jr., both true stories. But this has always been in my DNA. And frankly, that was okay up until about 2008 when the world kind of changed. And obviously I felt we had another shift the last 2 years with COVID. But for me, I knew I didn't want to be in the greater Northeast doing the commute, the reverse commute, et cetera. My head and heart was for Austin way before the rest of us, tend to have moved down here. And it's been a good thing. I've basically been an alts guy for the past decade, and I feel very fortunate of who I've teamed with and who I've learned from during that time.
Awesome, man. Tell us a little bit more about that, those inflection points that you had, kind of in 2008. And then I know more recently again, but, maybe jump into that a little bit when you started looking at finances and kind of just the way of life a little bit differently.
Yeah, for me, so out of dumb luck, I was with GE. So for our younger folks on the call, this is General Electric, which used to be the top company in the world, all of only 15 years ago. But from that, we had a taste of Austin for a year. So this is obviously nowadays, of course, the big capital shop's going to be in Austin too. Not 15 years ago, we were a 4-person joint venture, and spin the globe around, see where we want to do an on airport cargo real estate project. Really cool. I almost stayed and worked for Republic Tequila. The bottle's in the shape of the state of Texas. Ken McKenzie, a buddy, his wife is also from Guadalajara. But like they say, when you go against your gut, you tend to pay. So it took us about 3 more years in the Northeast to get down here. And part of this was, much like when I traded on Wall Street, these companies are kind of nameless. And when you're at such a big shop, you wonder how much you can impact. And I'm coming from small town Pennsylvania. So my inflection point is a recruiter said, "Hey, do you want to be part of a company that says we're going to fight the war against the mega banks?" And wow, great idea. We were throwing pebbles that evaporate versus, big rocks, of course. But it was a good experience to get me down here. And kind of concurrently, I started doing what's now called crowdfunding, bars, restaurant investments, giving out personal loans to female entrepreneurs, which has been highly successful. And then a fun fact, I was co-best man in a wedding. So for all of our Pete Davidson fans, it was the coldest day in Staten Island, the shordest day, I think December 21st. And the gentleman who I was co-best man with, I said, "What do you do?" He says, "I flip houses." And I'm like, "Yeah." So what does that mean? He said, 15%. I'm like, "Oh." And then he said, "Did you know you can use your retirement dollars?" And this was my light bulb moment, because I kind of knew it subconsciously, but going full circle of, I don't want to be in the Fidelity Year 2050 fund. I want to have control of my stuff that I can do, frankly, in this lifetime before I'm old and in a chair, and make it active in my community. So, this was a big one. From there, Austin, the first prop tech shop I was with was big into self-storage, and that's frankly been part of my story for the past decade. I felt I had the benefit of talking to 100, 200 plus executives during my tenure at Sparefoot, folks that I ultimately became close to. They've since built a portfolio, sold for 9 figures. I raised some capital for them, so kind of resharpen the sword, as they say, in this side. And then, finally, I was on a plane to, and I always encourage folks, if you're interested in something, go learn from the experts. So I was on a plane to Money 2020, talked to a good friend, Henry Yoshida, and said, "Hey, Henry, look at the storage deal. And did you know you can use your retirement?" And, I think in his mind, he was always thinking, imagine if we can eliminate all this friction, people can have easy access to the retirement dollars. So, outside of my son being born on St. Patrick's Day a few years back, from professionally, these have been the big kind of aha moments that really has made me an alt guy.
I love that, man. I love that you have kind of done a complete 180 from, Wall Street and, your traditional pension funds to now seeing the writing on the wall and kind of coming to the, I don't want to call it the dark side, it's the light side.
Beautiful. Hey, we got a lot of light here. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your current businesses and what you do with Rocket Dollar and also your fundraising.
Yeah, so with Rocket Dollar, and a lot of your followers here know me from Rocket Dollar. It's a checkbook control self-directed provider, and so I'm an advisor. I like to joke, for anybody that worked for a startup, you gain 100 hours back when you move back to an advisor versus wearing 3 or 4 hats. And but I love sharing. Particularly, a lot of us are self-employed, whether you're a realtor or you do a little consulting on the side. The solo 401k is the way to go. Or for us as sponsors that are coaching, to let folks know that, hey, you can use your retirement dollars, but the checkbook control is going to save me and you both an hour every time you cut a check. So little things like that, I think, are part of an education. The benefit from being associated with the likes of Rocket Dollar is, I got to meet you. I talked to over 500 sponsors. During my COVID year, I think I invested with 10 or 20. And ultimately, being that I'm in Texas, I've kind of aligned myself with Texas. I'm in Austin, which is still relatively smaller, finding the guys with great partners in both Dallas and Houston that can offer institutional product at the retail level. That's what brought me to BV. So, as we call it in the industry, the product's been great. I'd say a lot of very niche multifamily that with returns and a backstory kind of above and beyond the market. And if you think of the whole stock bond portfolio, we teamed up with the top industrial shop in the state to provide an industrial offering that pays monthly distribution. So, we've had a fair amount of folks very humbled that folks I've got to know over time, whether through cash or IRA or both, and they've invested in 3, 4, 5 deals in the first year that I'm associated with BV.
Yeah, I love that you've invested along the way, right? I mean, with Rocket Dollar, you were talking to folks, talking to sponsors, and you're bringing in clients to convert their traditional IRAs into, or their retirement accounts into solo 401ks or SDIRAs, and telling them, hey, you should do this and you should invest in these deals. But a lot of times people, they don't eat their own cooking. They don't do it. So I love the fact that you were, looking for your own investments and invested along the way.
Yeah, and for folks looking to get in, particularly, let's say you're in a, probably a bit of a stressful, but say a pretty stable W-2 job as an engineer, or a doctor friends out here and such, lawyer friends. There's a difference between like and trust, and we can like each other on Facebook, LinkedIn 100 times, but trust is when money moves, and that's a mutual thing, both sides. And it doesn't have to be a big check. And I think a lot of sponsors, if you're sincere, say, hey, here's where I think I could be in 5 years, even if it's I'm just going to do passive 2 or 3 deals and then own 1,000 doors, et cetera. They're going to be like, great, we'll let you in below our minimum because let's get to, there's some great benefit. You're like-minded. So that's one thing I would strongly suggest. Like anything, you have to, drop a seed and do it.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of those deals that you liked kind of investing with your own dollars, and what do you kind of, I know you don't recommend investments to your clients, but let's say you did. What are some of your favorite ones?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's just talk about diversification. And, once again, I'm licensed under BV. We are a 506C, so I could share if I choose to. Like anything, I think it's good, particularly if you have the knowledge and the folks, that you can mix asset classes, geography, duration, something value add, which means, in layman's terms, you're going to get a dividend versus development, which is almost like a startup. You're not going to get paid till the back end, but it is on real estate. But a lot of things can go not so good because it's a longer cycle, et cetera. So, with that, that's how I view diversification. We actually termed it at Rocket Dollar 21st century diversification. So outside of some of the startups, and as I mentioned, female entrepreneurs that I support, some, I'd say, insurance plays that might pay the equivalent of 15 or 20% coupon annually. On the real estate side, I'm in a fair amount of self-storage personally. As I said, I think it's gone from we can talk, I could talk about this for a good hour, but I think going from a want to a need, something you really need to have. Likewise, industrial has been one of these. It's been on the top 5 list for many years of a subsegment of real estate. And now I think finally retail investors, that many of us in our ecosystem are saying, wow, yeah, I think I want to get in this from a risk return standpoint. So, and like anything, for your initial chip, if it's somebody and or you can literally put boots on the ground and walk the property, I think that's a great place for your first check as an LP.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to something you pointed out there. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about passive investing. A lot of folks, they want to, jump right into active investing, or maybe they don't know if they want to invest passively or actively. But one beautiful thing about passive investing is that you can diversify across geographies, across asset types, with different sponsor groups, different businesses, all sorts of things. Whereas if you're, on the active side, to do it well, you really need to concentrate on one thing and probably in one area. So you're not going to get that diversification.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. And let's jump in a little bit to the self-storage and industrial. Why do you love it? I know you said you could talk about an hour on it. So let's at least get it started, man. Why do you love self-storage? Why do you love industrial? And you can separate those out if you want to.
For sure. Yeah. So storage, as I said, the big thing is, people used to joke, oh, it's, as my, the older generation say, it's your crap. I grew up in the pretty blunt about it. But no, I do feel, especially from COVID. So let's kind of combine multifamily and storage, and why it's a natural, or any residential and storage, a natural extension. A few years ago, you couldn't say 3-bedroom. That was a bad word. Nobody would ever move into a 3-bedroom. You had to call it a 2 and a den. Nowadays, good luck finding a 3. Some markets, good luck finding a large 2. So with that, let's say you have another child, you're going to be home more. Frankly, you don't want to feel like a hoarder. Storage becomes not just a want, but a need. And I'm not saying, your stuff, it's the whole surfboard versus ski analogy. You're going to have some of that, the Christmas tree, but you're going to have things that are very essential, such as your kids' winter clothes, your tax forms. It becomes a true part of your life. And what's the trade-off? Well, even if you can find, say, that 3rd bedroom, you're paying probably at least $1,000 in most parts of the country for that extra bedroom. Or you can pay $100 for storage. So what are you going to go with? And a few folks, even a colleague in your parts in California, tested the water and raised rents 80%. And guess what? Nobody walked out. Nobody left. And this is from the downtown MSAs, even all the way to secondary and tertiary markets. In terms of assets, folks say, obviously residentials, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but also, hey, I have a boat, I have something else. Well, maybe I want a higher end storage or something different. I don't want to just keep it in some random lot somewhere. I wanted something that's dedicated, it's protected, it has a gate, it has cameras. So, with that also, as you think more secondary, tertiary markets outside of just your typical 5x5, it's pretty powerful for storage. And then, finally, being that I would say if you're an owner operator, commercial is a stronger tenant than a college student. Folks might be living smaller, but still need that space for their commercial goods. So that's why I love storage. And all of what I was just sharing, there's a lot of articles about the 4Ds. The fifth D, which I can't fully claim, although the idea was marinated in my head, prior to COVID, is decluttering. I really think it's something, not just death, divorce, and a few others. Decluttering is a very strong, something that folks feel good about. It just becomes part of your life, how you're going to set yourself up. Separately, let me touch a little bit on industrial, and I'm happy to bounce into any points. I mean, industrial, I think high level, it's not going away. Most of us have an Amazon Prime, or you probably know the password for somebody. So, you got something. E-commerce is here. Politics aside, especially in Texas or, even California, the ports are here. Things are coming through. Things are coming through Mexico. Industrial's not going anywhere. Literally what makes the country move. And I like to say, for folks that don't know what industrial is, every other asset class that you can picture, you picture a storage facility, a hotel, a multifamily, everything else kind of buckets into industrial, which, it's the nuts and bolts of our society to move our goods. So, with that, I'm pretty bullish on it too. Particularly also if you have a triple net industrial, your tenant, by default, you're at 100% occupancy. You probably have a 10 to 15 year lease versus most of, our investment world is 3 to 7 years. So, with that on the GP side, if you find a good product, I think your investors are going to be happy.
Attorneys, doctors, passive income seekers, I'm talking to you. I remember investing in my first passive real estate deal, the anxiety, the uncertainty of what I didn't know, and what I had never done before. It was a lot of money being wired to someone I barely knew. Now, it all worked out, but that's not always the case. I would have never invested in that same deal today, now that I have the knowledge and the confidence to know how to invest intelligently. And now with a combination of uncertainty and a flood of newbie sponsors in the market, how do you find the true experts that will perform and make your investment successful? For those of you out there looking to learn how to invest passively in syndications, we've been behind the scenes working on something very special. You don't have time to go through a 6-month course or to try to make a program designed for deal sponsors work for you. You want to be a passive investor. Focus on your career and your family, but add cash flowing, appreciating commercial real estate investments to your portfolio so you can practice when you want to and not because you have to. We've built a powerful passive investor program designed to teach you everything you need to know, but nothing that you don't. It's a 4-week program, but if you really want to make moves, it can be completed in just a few days with ongoing support as you make your investment decisions. Passive Income Pro is enrolling now with a very limited number of seats for each cohort, so you can get the hands-on attention that you need. Go to passiveincomepro.io to learn more. Yeah, love that, man. I'm going to go back to, your talk about self-storage. First thing that sticks out to me is, you have sticky tenants, right? I mean, sometimes the amount that you're paying per month, it just draws from their credit card and they forget they even have it, right? And it's going to be such a pain to move that stuff back out. They're sticky. They're just going to leave it there and they just leave it forever.
Yeah, even in industry vets, there's one gentleman, I see him every few years and I joke, say, hey, how's that bike doing? It's from the 80s. It's in the middle of Arizona. I mean, talk about, and he's the expert, talking about this. And, we were the Christmas tree family, guilty as charged for many years. Yeah, even now. And the thing too, in storage, when you do a rent increase, you just send out a little postcard. And historically, although some folks are doing it a little bit less than a year, maybe twice a year now, it'd be the middle of May. No matter where you live in the country, the last thing you want to do is spend a beautiful May Saturday moving your storage, because you're going to say, hey, it went up from 60 to 68. You're like, that's not so bad. But once again, it's about 10 to 15% at least. So
Right.
from that standpoint, and this is just copy paste year over year, and it's pretty rare. I mean, it's pretty rare that you're going to see people move out in mass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you see that $8 increase, it's not enough at an individual level to move your personal needle to say, oh man, $8, $5. I don't care. I'm not going to make a change because of that. But from the operator's standpoint, that $5 to $8 across thousands of units is a lot of money.
It's tremendous. Yeah. And the timing of it. I mean, there's a science. There's some folks that are highly sophisticated for revenue management, but otherwise, frankly, even if you just raise rates, once a year, at least 95% of the folks are staying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy the stuff that people like the Christmas tree example. I mean, if you do the math, it's like, well, you could just buy a new Christmas tree every year or buy these things every single year and you'd have new stuff and you wouldn't pay for the storage. And you'd be saving money. It's crazy how people get caught up in that. And the other interesting point that you made that I really loved was the fact that you pointed out, the housing cost increases, whether that's buying a house or renting a house, they're going up so dramatically that it makes more and more sense to have a storage facility because the cost is so out of whack for if you had to store that, let's say in an extra bedroom or a garage or something that you have to buy or rent.
Yeah. And for folks that are fortunate that you can have what I'll call, on-site storage in your garage or this or that, that's great. Most folks, particularly the more, say, urban you want to be, in your living space, in case you want to literally probably see it at least once a week, even if you're opening a closet and such, you want it out of sight, out of mind. And I would say, let's be realistic, it's tougher to buy a house. People want to have pride in themselves and their where they live, where they see every day. Whether you're going from, Valentine's Day to St. Patrick's Day to the Easter Bunny to blah, 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 all the way through. Yeah, I think that's a benefit too. I mean, as certain folks, a fair percentage of our population feels that, they have a smaller percentage of, even if it's a bigger pie, I do think it's going to be helpful. I feel, different cultures, different parts of the country, but, once again, having where you can kind of flip things in or out and just feeling like you literally have more space and air in your house, I think that's something that folks are at least recognizing, and this is where storage comes in.
Yeah, for sure. For some of our listeners out there, a lot of them are lawyers and doctors and have a W-2 and they're not professional investors. The concept of industrial, the concept of self-storage is a little bit more foreign than, say, multifamily, because we've all lived in an apartment or a condo or something. So it's just very easy to wrap our heads around. And that's usually the first step that we make, either as a passive investor or even, active operators. There's, so many people in that space because it's just easy to wrap your heads around. Where can they get started kind of educating themselves, at least getting comfortable with the idea of investing in something like self-storage or industrial, so that they can take advantage of these awesome opportunities?
Yeah, and that, so if I appreciate our relationship and assume you have a close relationship with your listeners, just reach out to me one-on-one. LinkedIn is a great place. And I get it, some folks might not be on LinkedIn, but I'm guiding you here because I think a lot of the great stuff that you post and folks in our close network are even if somebody logs in once a week, you're going to gain a lot. So I'm kind of leading you here to my swimming pool, but one-on-one, say you heard it here, Seth and I were talking, be more than happy to have a one-on-one for as deep a dive as you want on either of these asset classes, or otherwise, frankly, how you fund, whether it's through your liquid cash or from your retirement dollars. For ex-military friends, you can use your TSP. If you have a husband-wife team on the real estate side, you can actually defer your taxes by over 100,000. Just a little tidbit there, in the first year with the solo 401k. So if any of these little sound bites are of interest, please reach out to me directly.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, man. I think people are sometimes, we always say, hey, just jump on a call with us, book a call. We'll chat with you about your financial goals or any questions you might have. And a lot of people are just very reluctant to do that, to make that kind of one-on-one connection. But that's the best way to do it. If you hear someone on a podcast or read a book or, see them on social media and they invite you to book a call with them, they mean it. I mean, they really want to reach out to you and educate you and get you comfortable with it, with making, a good investment. Because once you, especially if you haven't done it before, once you do it once, it's kind of a game changer in your mind, in your mindset. And then you'll just see opportunities all over the place, and you'll really, kind of get the hang of it, and it'll start accelerating.
Touche, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Before we jump into the Freedom 4, do you have one last golden nugget for our listeners?
Yeah. And this is big and bold. And, till I'm on my last breath, I'm going to say, did you know you can use your retirement dollars to invest passively in real estate? And for my sponsor friends, did you know your investors can use their retirement dollars to invest with you? And here's the proof point. For folks that have done this, let's talk about these sponsors first. Sponsors that have regularly educated, it can be literally that one sentence, maybe hyperlink it to something fun, or like Rocket Dollar's knowledge base, for example, which is rocketdollar.com/learn. You tend to get about 10 to 20% of your raise done. I like to joke, take off Friday because you have your raise done. What's the feel good scenario? You have a good friend, let's pick on, it's probably, the story's a little dated, but let's pick on our USC friends. You got to do whatever you do to get your kids in USC. You're low on liquidity. All right, great. But you worked for a big company for 30 years. You can tap into that money to invest, in your buddy's real estate, like startup, et cetera, et cetera. And then for, I think, passive investors also, the checkbook control is great. Why? Because there's going to be times you're going to hear something, you're going to have a good, strong gut feel you want to support, whether it's a certain demographic, DEI, you name it. You can do that with your retirement dollars, especially for us over 40. I mean, this is one life. This is one book of assets that we have. Don't wait that long and just be beholden to whatever, the Fidelity year 2100 or 2050 fund is giving you. There's a lot more that you can do. And, final point there is, and all the stats say, a dollar that you put into a community, on the other side of the tracks per se, that gets recycled 3, 4, 5x times around. And that could be one of your retirement dollars that, eventually kicks off that wonderful cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we talk about when we say create your own economy. I mean, take control. A lot of people don't know what to do with their retirement account, with their money. They're like, okay, well, now that I've learned that I can actually roll it over into something that I can control, now what do I do with it? Well, educate yourself, see what you can do with it. It's something that's very important in your life. You shouldn't just say, here, financial advisor, put it in this fund and this fund and this fund, and then just roll with it and pray until you're 60 years old that it works out. Especially nowadays, you've seen the volatility in the market. It's insane. You need to be able to diversify into, more consistent assets, which a lot of times that ends up being real estate. But if you want to take on other ventures, invest in your own business or somebody else's business, you can also do that.
For sure. And we might hit on the Freedom 4, but I like to joke, if you can spell it, you can get it. D Kryzanowski, 12 letters, only one Z. That'll get you some change off your Rocket Dollar account. And for any sponsors, I really do think it's you. Once again, if you're going to suggest to your audience to use their retirement, you might want to try it out first. Just saying, speak to me offline. We'll make sure that you have a good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's jump into the Freedom 4.
All right.
It's time for the Freedom 4.
What's the best thing you do to keep your mind and body healthy?
Very simple, and I won't show you here, but every morning I just flip a 180 and put my legs up the wall. So, I'm not sure if I'm 100% meditating, but pretty close. But worst case, you're getting blood that flows from your legs back down and into your brain. So it's a start.
Whoa, man. I haven't heard that one before. We do that at Burn Boot Camp, but it's usually part of the workout. So that's interesting, man. With all your success, what is one limiting belief that you've crushed along the way, and how did you get past it?
Oof. I don't know if I've crushed it. How I'm getting past, as I referenced, I grew up in Scranton, PA, and the time that I grew up to, whether you were, the kid of the CEO at the bank or super, super blue collar, everybody was in the same boat and it didn't matter. I referenced my parents both being in pension sort of environments, even going through war. And, you have so much of this, I don't say driven down my throat, but just around me. It took a good, I think, 20 years to say, like, it's okay to be it's okay to never have a W-2 again. It's okay to have, basically control over your schedule, where you might be trading off a fair amount of income at time, but for life experiences. So, for me, that's something that took a lot. And I totally empathize with folks that grew up in a similar, environment.
Yeah, Dan, I have the same problem. I mean, I'm still getting over it. I like to think that I'm over it, but I'm not. I mean, it's still kind of there. It's still like, oh, I'm not getting, this W-2 paycheck. There's something wrong with it. Because I grew up the same way in outside of Fairmont, West Virginia. It's the same thing. We're all in the same boat. We're all working till we're 60, 65 to get a retirement. And that's just the mindset that you grew up with. So it's really difficult to shake. All right. What's one actionable step our listeners can do right now to start creating more freedom?
All right. Copy paste. Did you know you can use your retirement dollars to invest in private real estate? And once again, just want to preface, you're not taking your full every dollar retirement, even if you have a financial advisor. I mean, frankly, to be dangerous, if you have 25, 50, 100K, move that over, put little checks with some, say, if your thing's multifamily or storage or otherwise. There's a lot of great sponsors out there that you can put in that have a solid track record. So like anything, it's for me, it was my light bulb moment. And I think for a lot of folks, it's pretty beneficial to do. So, just do it.
Yeah, for sure. And, you can tiptoe your way into it. Obviously, there are some pretty big minimums on some of these deals, but, you're not you don't have to move your entire retirement account over, or even if you do move it into a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k, you can still invest in mutual funds and stocks and bonds and all that stuff if you want to. You still have that freedom, but that's the beautiful part about it, is you have the freedom and flexibility to do what you want with that money. And put it where you want to, rather than being subject to a lot more restrictions in the traditional sort of accounts. And, that kind of goes back to another thing. It's just trying to, folks are like, well, I don't have $25,000 or $50,000 to invest. Well, you just got to start looking to see where you can find those funds. A lot of times it can be in your retirement account. It might be, you can get a HELOC on your home, something like that. If you have hundreds of thousands of dollars locked up in, the house that you live in, that's money that's not working for you. That's money you need to figure out a way to make that money work for you. And a lot of people, they think that's risky. I don't think that it is. I think it's risky leaving it in there more than anything. All right. Last but not least, how has passive income made your life better?
Time. I gained back, my little guy just turned 6 on St. Patrick's Day. Two things. One, just on a professional standpoint, if I want to go to, one of these great shows and hear from best of breed folks, I do. And then more in the micro, I'm going to pick up my son from school today. We're going to get pizza. We're going to play soccer and probably get healthy juice. And then, and I know some of this is covered by passive income and not just writing a check, but also becoming a little more sophisticated, knowing the type of K1, the type of this, a whole lot of things like, cool, you might get an extra few thousand bump here on a net basis as you do your taxes, because you align with a certain sponsor that fits your strategy. So for me, it's just been a factor of time, and not to have to although obviously there are the oh shit moments that anybody that's no longer W-2'd have, but vis-a-vis, 99% of the time, it's just taking back control of your time, especially as a parent or a parent later in life, is just awesome. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, definitely. It's the flexibility with your time. It's not that you have nothing to do, but what you can do is move those things around for the things that are important, like spending time with your child, and those small moments are huge ones.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, Dan, it's been great, man. Where can our listeners find out more about you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. If you're not on LinkedIn, I guess Dan at dankryzanowski.com. But I think LinkedIn is great. And, once again, also, I think a lot of what I share, Seth, with you sharing our common friends, LinkedIn does a really good job of, frankly, educating for folks if you connect or follow a few of us. So I think that's a great starting point. And in all sincerity, more than happy to take as much time as possible with any of your listeners to expand on anything we discussed today.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate that. All right, man. Let's talk soon.
Talk to you.
Bye. Big Dan Kryzanowski, an old friend of mine. Man, we go back a long ways at this point. Probably over a decade we've been friends. Really loved catching up with him. He had some incredible insights and dropped some awesome nuggets about self-storage investing and industrial investing, as well as self-directed IRAs, which a lot of folks don't realize that they can do. They don't realize that you can take your traditional retirement accounts and roll them over into a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k and gain control over your financial future. And that's the key. By doing something like that, you take the control back from your financial advisors, back from these hedge fund managers, and put it in your hands so you can decide your financial future and take back control of your life. All right. If you're ready to take the next step on your passive investing journey, but you just, you don't have that confidence you need to invest, or you just feel like you need a little bit more education before you send somebody $50,000, $100,000 to invest in a commercial real estate deal, I've got something for you. It's called Passive Income Pro. I've been working on this for over a year, but it's a 4-week program for you, guaranteed to give you the knowledge and the confidence you need to invest in your first or your next passive real estate deal. Just go to passiveincomepro.io to get started. All right, kiddos, as always, enjoy the journey.
Thank you for listening to the Passive Income Attorney Podcast with Seth Bradley. Do you want more ideas on how to generate multiple streams of passive income? Then jump over to passiveincomeattorney.com for show notes and resources. Then apply for the private Facebook community by searching for the Passive Income Attorney on Facebook. And we'll see you on the next episode.